Did you ever think in your career when you were starting, could you have envisioned talking about these types of cool issues, these types of issues in the career that you started at and now where we are in 2025? Just listening to you talk about it is kind of, wow, it's a whole new horizon.
No, it is. And really, our profession is very fastly, if that's a word, evolving. It's no longer the traditional maintenance leader role. It's really, we're becoming strategic partners within, integral to the whole operational efficiency, cost management of your organization, patient safety.
There's a major crisis facing healthcare facilities management. We have aging employees, aging buildings, and aging infrastructure. We've created the Healthcare Facilities Network, a content network designed specifically to help solve for these three pressing issues in healthcare facilities management. We bring on thought leaders and experts from across healthcare facilities management, all the way from the C-suite to the technician level, because at the end of the day, we're all invested in solving the aging issue. Thanks for tuning in. Look at our videos. You will find that as a theme across our content. This is the Healthcare Facilities Network. I'm your host, Peter Martin. Let me just first welcome my guest, Bob Feldbauer, Robert Feldbauer. Bob, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks, Pete. I'm Bob Feldbauer. I am the Chief Facilities Officer with Children's Health in Dallas, and glad to be back so soon, Pete.
So Bob gives a little hint for why we're doing this. Glad to be back so soon. I thank Bob for his time yet again. I had a little snafu on our first recording. Bob kindly joined me last week, and we recorded a great show, and it is always my fear, that we record, and when I go to play back, there's nothing there. Well, in this case, there was something there. Bob's voice is there, but Bob wasn't. So in the recording you are about to see, you will see me as well as some visuals, but you won't see Bob. And Bob kindly offered to come back onto the show so that you can see what he looks like, and so that he can say a word or two. But Bob, thanks. I apologize again for that, but you came up with a really good solution to appear live.
Well, Pete, in our business, we're nothing but resilient and able to pivot. And some may argue that this actually improved your show by not having my face for the full hour. So we'll go with that. But, part of what your listeners are going to hear is I appreciated you asked me about the Association of Medical Facility Professionals, which I'm the president-elect. I'm not going to rehash that, but it's a very good organization. So thank you for that time. In fact, as we sit today, I flew out late yesterday in order to join dinner with the San Diego chapter's board. New chapter as about 2 weeks ago. Very great group of folks. Enjoyed my dinner immensely. They have their first meeting today, and 160 people signed up, and I'm sure it's not just to hear me speak. So that kind of reiterates some of the points your listeners will hear, that if you don't know about AMFP, please look for it in your local town or areas, because it's a great organization, and I'm sure you'll find value. So thank you again for allowing me to speak about that.
No, it is my pleasure. And that we talk about it, so we don't need to rehash it, but 160 is a pretty good number to have. I'm sure you're pleased.
Oh, very pleased, and just shows the enthusiasm in addition to just great leaders across the country that are starting these chapters. So thanks to everyone involved. And again, not to rehash our conversation, but I just would like to reiterate, people should look it up. It's a great organization. So thank you for that.
Of course. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Bob, why don't you just say goodbye to everybody so they can see what you look like? You just say goodbye. So please listen to the rest of the conversation. Bob, thank you. And here we go on to the show. I am very happy and pleased to be joined by an old friend today, Robert Feldbauer, Bob Feldbauer, who joined us probably 2 years ago, just when we were starting with Healthcare Facilities Network. And then also, Bob, you and I don't know if you remember, when we were just doing the podcast form, talk to you relative to your overseas experience and what that was like to work, away from the country for so many years. So Bob's back again. Bob, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And that was a fun one for your listeners. And, I think we were in the middle of COVID at the time, too. So we're talking about some of the ramifications of that on projects and everything. So I enjoyed that episode. And for listeners who may not have heard that a couple of years ago, Peter grilled me pretty good. So go back and take a listen. That was a good one.
Good promo. Thank you. And, it's interesting with, with all the work that's available with the shortage of people. I think the overseas market is still for some kind of mystery, which is why I was glad to talk to you, because you gave that great perspective, what it's like to work over there, the opportunities, the challenges, and then, coming back home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I appreciated that episode. And thanks again. And thanks for inviting me back.
My pleasure. So at the time, you were at the University of Cincinnati Health System. Now, Bob, would you mind telling folks where you are, introducing yourself, who you are, where you are, what you do?
Yeah, Bob Feldbauer. I'm with the Children's Health System of Texas down in Dallas. Moved to this position in October of 23. Decided to make the move down from Cincinnati. Number one, back at UC Health, we had finished up phase one of our master plan. Because of COVID and other reasons, they were going through some financial constraints, which prevented them from moving on to their next phase of the master plan. And as part of that, taking a reduced role of my remaining career time of not being involved in major projects, this opportunity came along at Children's Health. We'll hopefully talk a little bit about what I'm involved with down here, but tremendous organization, really very pleased that we made the move down. My wife and I love Dallas. I couldn't be more pleased with Children's Health. It's the best organization I've worked for, and that's saying a lot. I've worked for some very good organization. So it's kind of the capstone of my career, being here at Children's Health and working on the large project that, again, I hope we have some time to dive into today.
Yes, definitely want to get into your large project. Can I just ask you a question, though? And I also want to talk to you, obviously, about your role as president of AMF. But before that, when you were considering moving from Cincinnati to Dallas, what are, you talked about kind of the career opportunity and the chance to be involved in another massive project with children's, but were there other considerations for you? And the reason I ask that, Bob, is because sometimes folks are a little bit hesitant to move on from opportunities, and there's, they're concerned because the market at the time was a little bit topsy-turvy. Did you have any concerns, or were you full bore going forward?
No, it was really full bore. The position itself was a new position for Children's Health. It was an elevated facilities role as the chief facilities officer, and with responsibilities of leading one of our committees of the board, co-leading with one of our board members, and at that level. So that really resonated with me. And I had some preliminary interviews with Children's Health with some of the executives that report to the CEO, and by virtual interviews. Came down in person. The first interview was with the CEO. Been here almost, if not 25 years now. Very well accomplished individual, but we had 1 hour interviews set up with 45-minute interviews, 15-minute breaks in between, scheduled the whole day. First one was the CEO, and Mr. Durovich came in about 10 minutes before the hour. Said, "I heard you're here. Do you mind if we get started?" I'm like, "Well, your dime." And he came in, and again, we were supposed to have 45 minutes. It went an hour and 20 minutes. He went 10 minutes past the hour, so we're already going in. But it was really great conversation, very smart questions. I thought, that at the CEO level, that not all CEOs can get into that level of detail and really have a good conversation. So coming out of that very first interview that morning, I was convinced, at least on my part, this was the organization for me and the fit that I want to be. So again, the whole leadership team is great. My boss, the chief operating officer, they were actually recruiting that position the same time they were recruiting the one I'm in. So they announced his selection a a couple weeks after I was on board when I came in person for interview. So we had a chance to do a virtual interview as well before I made the final sign on the line commitment. But another great individual that really pragmatic, is an engineer by background, and any things in systems and processes. And going back to our interview, we talked about, Pete, our podcast. If you remember, I talked about I tend to think in systems, processes, of people. So really pragmatic person. So a great team to be after.
So you talk about that, the interview we did before. I think back to, I remember you were talking about the Internet of Things and AI. And so this was probably, 2.5, 3 years ago now, Bob? And
Right.
It is amazing to me how since that time, and again, whenever I hear the Internet of Things, I always kind of think of you because you had talked about it. It is amazing the speed with which things have accelerated over the last 3 years in those two areas, or in those areas.
Oh, absolutely. And, with the ability to think more about that stuff as you're building a new campus, those are certainly some of the things we hope to introduce to this new facility as we move forward.
Well, I told you or I recommend it to you, not told you, but whenever you decide that you're moving on, relative to big projects and talking about that via your own podcast or something, you've certainly got the experience to do it. And it's, these big projects, as you know, they don't come along that frequently, and this will be your second or third, so certainly an opportunity there. Let's start, though, Bob, with you're president-elect for AMP, right? Now, AMP is the Association of Medical Facility Professionals. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I have to admit, and I want you to tell us, please, excuse me, a little bit about AMP. I think when I saw that come through on your LinkedIn feed that you were the president-elect, I was like, AMP, I don't think I had heard of it before. Tell us, what is AMP? What's it like to be president-elect? Give us a little details, please.
If you haven't heard about AMFP yet, you will soon, because, but let's start with their trajectory. They formed in 2019, and the leaders who started this came out of HCI, the Healthcare Institute, which had been an alliance partner with IFMA.
Yep.
So when IFMA went away from that model, these individuals said, "Hey, let's create that on our own and start our own professional association." So, Pete, what a great time to start a professional membership organization right before COVID hit. So, no ability to do in-person meetings or any of that stuff. So, you have to, healthcare facilities people aren't nothing but resilient. I think that's one of the reasons that AMFP has been able to, not throw in the towel at the time, because you couldn't have picked a worse time to start an association.
You could have.
So, but their view was that by having an association that brings together a wide spectrum of different perspectives, the real estate, the design, the vendors, suppliers, medical office, developers, academics, we could drive innovative solutions through this diversity of expertise. So they kept going, and it's really been remarkable. So 2021, which is a short 4 years ago, they had 8 chapters and 650 members. 2022, it grew to 11 chapters, and they broke the 1,000 member at that time in 2022. In 2023, they're up to 19 chapters with 2,800 members. Now today, we have 32 active chapters with over 4,900 members. So we'll be breaking 5,000 members soon. So clearly, this growth trajectory makes AMFP one of the fastest growing professional associations of healthcare. And I believe, by the world that validates their approach and our mission. So in 2025, we do have 9 additional chapters that are going to be coming on board. This year. Nebraska just had their kickoff a week ago. We have St. Louis, Northeast Florida, San Diego, which I'm going out to have that kickoff. One of our board members goes to every launch of a new chapter. Cincinnati soon, and I'm hoping my friends in Cincinnati will invite me to that kickoff. Iowa, Louisiana, and several others. So it's been a really amazing story to work with this organization. So as part of that, in 2025, I assumed president-elect. This is a new position for AMFP. And really my goal, as I stated it, as I sought out the position, and they were talking to me about it, is really to transition the national board from an operating board to a governance board. So again, back to the systems, processes, and people, I think I have the ability to help them out with that. So when AMFP was new, by default, they had to be directly involved in day-to-day operations. They were a small, startup organization, but now as they've grown in their current financial situation, they've matured enough that they really need to transition to a governance board of directors that focuses on strategic oversight. So part of that, we'll, have the board responsible for setting long-term strategy and vision to best support our local chapters. And the local chapters is really where the strength of this organization lies. So even though I started this position as president-elect in January, I have been elected that previous October in 2024. At that time, even before I became officially president-elect, I got involved in a couple things that will assist in my time as president, certainly, but as president-elect as well. I was involved with a team to rewrite our bylaws. As our organization grows, we really had to write bylaws and put new board structure in place and the things that come with that. So I was involved in writing those bylaws. And by the way, for any AMFP listeners, members who are listening out there, you received an email last week to vote on these new bylaws. So please look for your email vote. If you have any questions about it or concerns about it, contact me directly. I'd be glad to answer any of those, but please vote. Please read them, please vote. And I also chaired a committee to select an association, professional association management company. So we went through a competitive RFP process. We selected a company, had them on board, and that included hiring our first executive director for AMFP through that firm. So we're really excited about that. So going into 2026, really my goal as president then will be to transition fully from this operating board to a governing board. And we're putting the right things in place now, but really to make sure we come through that, we set up a strategy that's robust enough and really honor the hard work of our founding members who are, now taking a deserved rest from all the tremendous work they put into this, and handing the keys over, if you will, to a new set of leaders on the board. But one cool note, Pete, that you might be interested in, the international, we talked about my international experience. The International Federation of Facility Managers is an international group that meets of various countries around the world each year. The last time they were in the United States was in 2003. They had their conference in conjunction with the ASHI annual that year. In 2026, during my term as president, they will be holding their conference in conjunction with AMFP at the Healthcare Design Conference and Expo in New Orleans in 2026. So that's going to be a really great event, and we're thrilled to be their host. And it's been over 20 years since they've been in the U.S., so we're glad to get them back here. I'm glad to be hosting them.
Relative to chapters, are you guys focusing on states as opposed to regions with your chapters, or how big are the chapters? Not people-wise, but geographic-wise.
They're more local right now. So one of the things the board needs to decide as part of our strategy moving forward is we're having great success at the local level with the chapters, and then we believe that's what our strength is. But as we grow, do we need to start looking at regions so that we can consolidate some of the education and symposiums and other stuff we do? So that'll be part of the outgrowth of getting larger and continuing to refine the needs of our members as they tell us.
Yeah, I think the local angle is probably pretty important, right? Bringing the education and bringing it to the people in the hospitals who may not have the time, the money, the resources to go national.
Yeah, and I think it's a good deal for healthcare end users. It's $95. So when you take your wife out to dinner, a glass of wine, and you're paying more than that. So it's really a tremendous deal for healthcare users. It's interesting what we're finding. Again, it's a more of a diverse work than maybe some traditional healthcare facilities managers who really do have a full spectrum of all the suppliers, vendors, everyone that helps with the built environment, which we think is part of its strength. But what we're finding on the healthcare end users, we're really finding that the VP level and up or equivalent, the facilities executives and healthcare users are really finding AMFP to be a great source of collaboration and networking. Our networking events, like for me, when I got to Dallas, I was fortunate in that Dallas is one of the early chapters in AMFP and pretty mature. And not knowing anyone in Dallas, and in healthcare, you really need a Rolodex of old things happen at 30 Well, by the way, for your younger listeners, Rolodex is not an app. It's some old Clark index used to have. Anyway,
Thank you.
it really was a good source for me to start meeting people in the environment. What I liked about it, what really sold me is I first went to a luncheon 2-hour where it was a person in a firm that did strategy for hospitals across the country and really talking about what they're finding, where healthcare is going. And it took it down to the hospital level for people in our position. How does this resonate? How do you lead to discussions within your organization? So it's just a different level of education session that I had seen in other organizations. And then I went to the first networking. They do have just pure networking meetings as well. And I thought, well, I'll go. But I had a little bit of hesitation because when they see children's health and they know a $5 billion project, I thought, I'm using ultras on meeting that. And I thought if that's the case, I'll maybe actually, I do want to go and start meeting people in the Dallas area. And it wasn't that at all. It was very, very much a relationship building type networking. It's not vendors there trying to sell you. So I really appreciate that aspect about you. So of getting involved in the board at our Texas organization.
Yeah, I don't think the vulture model works in the long term. Are you guys specific, Bob? Is AMF specific to the built environment? And if you had said that, I apologize. So it's more PDC focused as opposed to engineering focused, or do you still draw from the engineering side?
No, probably above, and even beyond that, looking at medical, looking at like developers who are doing medical office buildings through hospitals and the whole gamut in between. So it really is looking at the whole spectrum. And one other area that I think people come in that really seem to appreciate is people in healthcare or on the real estate side, because they don't really have a home in another organization that focuses on that, but they could get some education on that portion as well. So we're really trying to be a diverse set of expertise and have the whole spectrum of the built environment beyond the walls of the hospital.
Interesting. The developer angle is an interesting one these days, and I'd imagine that's probably one that becomes more critical as we go forward.
Yeah, and I was out in Phoenix earlier this year to one of their symposiums and really had a great session on that with some developers and how they're looking at things across the country and various markets. So it was, again, it's really bringing in that expertise to help you innovate within your own organization.
I was just going to ask you about that, Bob, the developer angle, because often developers may have a bit of a different focus than you as a VP of FM longer term, right? Patient satisfaction, developers. This is a gross characterization, but sometimes, in and out, make some money. I mean, they're developers. That's their role. Right. How do you bridge that gap, or is it relationships, education, communication, so that when you're in these projects with developers, the team is aligned and that, the work on the back end to get that facility up and running to see patients, the commissioning, the transition to operations, all of that is in place. How do you bridge the gap, or how do you make sure you're aligned, I guess is a better way to put it?
Well, for me personally, it was about education and really learning from the mindset of the developers, how they think. Of course, their angle is a little different than ours as the owner.
Right.
Our angle is to make money but as part of that, you can learn from that too. What are they seeing in the current markets? What are they seeing? The current ability of capital? Where are they seeing trends going? Is it better to lease at this point, to build at this point, and the gamut in between? So we're really seeing how they think and how they work through that has really been that was one really interesting conversation we had.
Has there been any within that conversation, Bob? Was there anything that was kind of an aha for you, or perhaps something like you didn't anticipate uncovering, but you did, relative to the developer angle?
I don't know if there's any aha moments other than a snapshot in time, where they were in 2025 and where their thinking is, as far as whether the owners should be thinking about, at this point, selling some of their properties and leasing them back. They're, where they are as far as really thinking through the whole gamut of lease, blend, buy, and that whole thing. So they went through all the scenarios of that, and I found it really interesting.
Interesting angle. So how much? So is it a 1-year term for you? And we can move on from AMFP in a sec. But are you president for a year?
Yeah, the current president, Jeff Kent, one of the founders, has been president for the past 5 years. But now, as we are developed the new bylaws I talk about, we're putting in time limits. There will be a 1-year president-elect followed by a year president, a year as the immediate past president. So yeah, my term will be 1 year. So Jeff will be our FDR, of one person, as more tenure that some of the presidents that will
Right.
come out.
Yes, the FDR. I just got back from Gettysburg over the weekend. Not that FDR ever went to Gettysburg, but when you said FDR, I thought of Eisenhower. Eisenhower had a place on Gettysburg. So I love that analogy. I always like the history stuff, throwing it in there, as I know you do. So Bob, just one more thing on AMF, and maybe like extending out, the challenges that face us in healthcare today. I mean, we talk about them all the time. How is AMP helping to address some of those? In fact, are you guys going to do a lot of advocacy? Are you going to, and again, you're really early and you're building the foundation, but how are you guys planning on addressing some of these challenges that exist?
Well, again, AMFP is a chapter-based structure. So, this structure is really proven to be highly effective and a sustainable model, with each of these chapters creating local hubs of engagement. So as part of that, we're focusing on education, network opportunities like I spoke about, and resources to these local chapter events. But we're also promoting national conferences. For example, AMFP is a partner with industry events like the Healthcare Design Conference and Expo. So we'll continue to promote the. I want to get away from just the end users, but just the whole gamut, the spectrum of people that are part of the Bolt department.
Interesting approach. And how do people find out more about AMP? Website to go to, or?
Yeah, amfp.org. And as you go there, you can go to a section called chapters, and there you'll see under the chapters, the local chapters, the different educational summits and events that are going on. Each of those symposiums really target different things. Like there might be an education session that focuses on strategic and capital planning panels and how different people look at that. Another panel might be, or symposium might focus the day or half a day on staffing shortages, challenges, recruitment, training panels, which I know is near and dear to your heartbeat.
Yeah.
For example, in North Texas, several months ago, they brought in Quinn Studer, and he does a lot on employee engagement. So we had a full day session with him. So, a little bit different angle than talking to healthcare facility managers. certainly we do focus on some of the facilities, things that are near and dear to all of us who run the hospitals. Like we've had panels on sustainability and all that. And we have sessions, like I talked earlier, on navigating economic uncertainty and healthcare industry challenges and how you can take that back and make it part of your discussion with the organization.
Yeah, I think from a content perspective, Bob, you really do. I mean, like education programs, you need the technical piece, but you really have to augment it with the soft skill stuff that you were just talking about, because it's half the job these days, right? I mean, you need the technical, but if you can't do that soft stuff, you're not going to be successful.
Well, and there are organizations like ASHU and others we do have really good programs related to that. So don't necessarily need to compete with them, but really fill in some of the gaps that we're missing there.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think so, because we've those.
By the way, Pete, Boston has a good chapter, so look him up.
I will.
Please tell them sound to it.
Absolutely, I will. I look forward to that. So that's a critical though. So you guys are locally based as opposed to nationally based.
That's the model that we believe has grown the success that AMFP has had to date.
All right, so let's transition for a second. You have a day job, right? That at Children's Dallas, and you've got some challenges there too. You've got a new $5 billion pediatric center you're building. Can you talk to us a little bit, Bob? Size, scope. Can you talk about that project?
Yeah, this project is actually a joint venture between Children's Health and UT Southwestern, which is a state academic medical center here in Dallas. So the relationship between UT Southwestern and Children's Health goes back to the 1960s.
Wow.
When Children's Health was granted land by the state of Texas to serve as the pediatric facility for UT Southwestern. So it's their doctors who are providing the clinical care in Children's Health.
Okay.
So as they decided to, several years ago, look at how we can really become stronger, become one of the leading pediatric healthcare providers of the country. So they created a joint pediatric enterprise between Children's Health and UT Southwestern. And as part of that, came this agreement to have a joint venture on this new hospital, which will replace our current Children's Medical Center Dallas. So a little bit of the size of it, it's approximately 4.9 million square feet, where our current campus today is about 1.9 million square feet. Anybody who works in hospitals or go to hospital know that parking always an issue. We're going to grow our parking spaces by 50%, go for 4,000, over 6,000 parking spots. There'll be 3 patient towers initially. 2 of them will be 12-story patient towers. The third will be an 8-story patient tower that can grow to 12 stories as weeds continue to grow. And then there is space adjacent to that tower, court tower, should that, or when that, or shaky you can see it. So the ability to do that. But when we open this one, it'll open like the 552 beds. We currently have 400 beds, but we also will have in this new facility 24 observation beds, which we currently do not at Dallas. So, as you know, for observation, it's children who come in. They don't quite meet the criteria to be admitted, but we don't want to send them home or we're waiting some tests. So now they either take up spots in the ED or up in one of our med surge beds. So this unit will really help create additional capacity and really have a program to do true observation on those in a unit that's set up for that. And it is a level 1 trauma center currently, and will remain, and we'll have 90 ED bays when we're done. So where we call it, the nomenclature for this campus is the new pediatric campus. So not really a big marketing call it campaign on naming it, but we developed a new pediatric campus. Again, we have two owners who developed a joint venture to manage this as well through a 501c3, a joint venture nonprofit of Pediatric Health Management Services, or PHMS. We also have two large international design firms involved, HKS, which is based out of Dallas, but Perkins and Will has partnered with them. Perkins and Will Healthcare is out of Dallas, their main healthcare hub. So you get two large firms that come together to design it. And then for the construction management, we have two firms that formed a true joint venture, a new company. McCarthy, which is a large national, probably the largest national CM for healthcare work in the country. And then Bond Construction, which is one of the largest CMs in Texas for healthcare. So they formed a joint venture called McCarthy Bond Partnership, or MVP. So our design teams, with HKS and Perkins and Will, they like to refer to themselves as the dream team, and McCarthy and Bond, refer to themselves as MVP. And I told both of them I'll use that designation at the end of the project. It's just our advocate, so they're starting to get my humor down there, Pete. So as you can imagine, now think about that. You have two owners.
Yeah.
One, a state institution, an academic medical center that has its own culture and own processes and own state regulation, and a nonprofit children's hospital coming together to collaborate on this. You've had two architectural firms, and I'm sure you're aware architectural firms all have their own culture and way of doing things. You have two construction managers. So if the project wasn't complex enough, you had that complexity as well. So a lot of work that's been going on behind the scenes in addition to managing the project. But how do we merge as teams, and teams amongst the three entities, but also a project? So a lot of good work is on behind that. So as you can imagine, so let's talk about PHNS for a minute. It was a new entity for them, but you're now responsible for serving as a developer for the design, construction, and development of this campus. But as a new entity, you have no policies, you have no procedures, you have no there's no delegation of authorities, spending authorities, contracting authorities. So all that had to be developed and negotiated between the owners of what limits we're getting. So, for example, in my day job, I have $1.5 million worth of authority spending that I can sign for spending authority. But on a $5 billion project, I was going to both CEOs and saying, unless you want to sign for everything, we need to, develop more delegated authority spending levels. So really working with both sides, attorneys, and coming up with plans. Like right now I have $25 million worth of authority just to make sure we're managing this project correctly. So a lot of work around that as well. But again, a lot of teaming work too. When I got here, some of the design firms were spread around the city. And as we were looking at coming out of SD and going into DD and doing some target value design, we had some brew in our facility where we're located and said, need all the teams here co-located. And now that the CM's bringing in their design assist subs to really jointly work together and that served to, number one, cut down on the time to get through the process we need to go to, but it also served to form relationships and teaming, so we felt more like a project team. So a lot of behind the scenes work going on like that as well. So it's just really been extremely fascinating, extremely rewarding. And as you also might recognize, just going through some of the contracts, when you're talking about contracts and risks for projects this large, and how do we get through that? And also for the CM, really breaking down these work packages, because some of the contractors can only bond for so much.
Yeah.
So how to really smartly break down work packages in an area that gives opportunities for firms that may not otherwise. A lot of work going on to help managers.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the network. And more importantly, share it with your colleagues in the healthcare industry. Together, we can solve the aging crisis that's impacting all of us.
Did you do co-location at University of Cincinnati when you were that project as well?
We did not because we intended to, but we did not because COVID hit. So
That's right.
That's right. Going virtual for a lot of this, so we had to reorder how to do that.
Forget about that, Bob. The COVID part. Are you continually trying to break down silos? I'm always interested, kind of in the interpersonal stuff, the relationship stuff. And you talked about relationships and building the relationships. And there's no fast track to building a relationship, right? Co-location is a nice way to build that relationship. But are you how do you break down silos? How do you make sure that everybody is on the same team moving forward?
Some of it's by design. Some of it's by just continuing to build those relationships. So, for example, by design is we have set meetings. We have a planning committee. We have a development committee. But sometimes we need to meet beyond that. So we got together for a one day, I don't know, partnering session, these are right word, but to really look at how we're set up and how you can improve on things. So now we have the lead from the architectural firm, the lead from the CM, myself and one of my coworkers that meet on a weekly basis, away from the day-to-day, what are the troubles, what are we going through, how are we managing things, to really the opportunity of the forks to align and say, are we, continue to move this forward, or are we struggling in some of our relationships, or, is there stuff that we need to do to make sure we continue to stay on track and partner. So I think if we do once a quarter, try to get off site and have the dinner with the four of us together, just to really maybe even not talk about the project, but really just continue to build that relationship. So we're doing things like that. The one thing we have coming up here shortly is we have finished basically design, where we finished design development. Now, in 2025, they're going to be doing CD packages, and that will go throughout 2025. But we're transitioning the planning team that will set up to even design, transition some of those folks off the team, but we're going to activate a transition and activation committee. So as part of that, we'll have some people from our MPC project team intertwined, and that's a combination of UT Southwestern Children's, intertwined with the Children's Medical Center Dallas, who will be operating a new hospital to start developing all the new clinical workflows, operational workflows, all that work that needs to be done to get ready to open this. So that's a whole new set of team building we'll be doing as we integrate some of their team and the project team to help do that work as well. So it's a never-ending process.
Yeah.
Even if we took a the equivalent employee engagement survey at one snapshot in time. That doesn't mean 6 months later, it's totally opposite. So it's something we just got to continually work on and continue to keep our ear to the ground and make sure we're moving in the right direction.
So you're starting that transition to operations pretty early in the project.
Yeah, it's again, going to be a whole new campus. Building a new tower within an existing campus. So a lot of work needs to be done over the coming, from the whole procurement that the owner needs to do with the medical equipment and FF&E, IT system, but also, the whole getting the teams together and how are your workflows different given this, because this building's going to be a different footprint, a different everything that they need to work through, and then, eventually get into the staff training and all that.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And so, Bob, you said CDs now. Are you doing any enabling work? And what's the completion date for this?
The enabling work was done earlier. The land we are on is UVT is owned by UT Southwestern. And this hospital, through a crowd, but he's was building on that land. So a lot of the enabling work was doing demolition of the buildings that were on that site. We broke ground in October of 24. A lot of site work. It's almost 34 acres that this will belong. But as part of it, for patient parking, there'll be 4 stories underground parking that goes with it. So a lot of dirt being removed. And we're continuing to do earthwork. We're drilling piers. We have 2 cranes up. A third will be going up this weekend for an eventual 9 cranes. We're doing some utility relocation at this time, but we have had a rainy season in Dallas to date, and I was concerned that we might have some slippage. The visit, it's a lot of dirt. We're 400 and some trucks a day going in and out.
Wow.
But so when we have a heavy rain, you think even the next day it'd be too muddy to work. But I don't know this for a fact, but I think having 400 trucks in and out of there kind of compacted the ground. So, it's not really that bad after a rain. It could be higher the next day. Continuing work.
Is the new site?
Pardon?
I'm sorry. Is the new site adjacent to your existing?
No, the new site is approximately a mile away from our current one, but it is adjacent across Harry Hines Boulevard, which is a major boulevard in Dallas, across the street from the current UT Southwestern's Clements University Hospital. So there will actually be a sky bridge that crosses Harry Hines Boulevard and connect those two. And the benefit of that is when our Children's Health will not have labor and delivery. So as you have out there that have a baby that needs to get directed to you right away, currently now have to put them in an ambulance transporter to our campus, existing campus, but this would be one where, it's an internal walkway to get over to the hospital.
Interesting. How are you funding the project, Bob? $5 billion.
Yeah, it's the most significant investment clearly by Children's Health and UT Southwestern. So it's going to be jointly funded, number one, but using a mix of operating income, liquidity reserves, debt issuance, and donations. And that's really key for both our institutions. Couldn't do this without community support. And the beautiful thing about North Texas is people were extremely incredibly generous. And to date, this project has received over 3 8-figure donations in addition to several other significant donations. So, that's $100 million, 8 figures. So, it's certainly grown that the community is invested in this new hospital as well. And, we as Project T look forward to working with the community members to make this project a reality.
Now, I don't mean this in a bad way, but in some, for like $5 billion, 8 donations or gifts over 100 million. Does it ever become like?
I'm sorry, three gifts over 100 million.
3 years, three gifts. Is it ever like Monopoly money sometime? I mean, I know you're accountable for it, so it can't be but that's just such a vast figure. It's incomprehensible.
Yeah, I think our leadership at boards were very smart when they approved this project, in that they did realize the time frame and the risk. So as part of that, they did put contingency that allows us to, as we're now talking about tariffs and talking about potential risk of supply chain issues and stuff, we're really being cognizant of making sure that this early in the project, we are wisely, even though people might say, well, there's $5 billion, you will wisely making sure we're using any contingency wisely. And really part of it is putting together ad alternate lists, as we get through the buyout from the CM side at the end of this year, early next year, then determining are there, ad alternates we want to consider at that time or not. So while it seems like it's monopoly money, you still have risk, and then you really have to be careful and manage it.
Exactly.
Not undifferent than a $50 million project.
Yeah. So you have all of these different constituencies who are involved in this project. When you get to, and I don't know that you're calling it value engineering, perhaps there's another term, but what is that process like when it comes to VE or making those tough critical decisions for what is in, what is out, especially given the conversation we just had relative to spending money wisely, but nevertheless, you're still trying to satisfy diverse groups of folks. What's that process been like, going to be like?
Yeah, it was we call it target value design.
Okay.
So we follow target value design process. And as part of that, like I spoke earlier, where we co-located these different teams into the same areas that are really working together instead of, in the MEP systems, engineers designing and throwing it over the fence to the, design assist sub, really get together and work into these things. But then the approval process through the entity PHMS that I spoke about, the Pediatric Health Management Services, a joint venture between UT Southwestern and Children's Health. We have a couple committee structures set up in there. We have a planning committee. That planning committee meets weekly. And in essence, it's a larger group, but we have 2 individuals from UT Southwestern and 2 of us from Children's Health that are responsible for leading that committee. So as part of that committee, they're delegated to make decisions, and we do within those the ability to do so, because on a big project like this, not everything can go to the executive level, or you're just, time will show you. Yeah. So we make decisions, a lot of decisions at this planning committee. There are some that need to go above that level, and there's a formal development committee that's been established. That development committee under PHMS has 5 voting members from the UT Southwestern, 5 voting members from Children's Health, me being one of those. And they have the authority to make decisions on their own. And there are some that then raise to the level where both executives, senior executives, our president, CEO, their president at UT Southwestern, want to be involved in and have input and decision making on, the look and feel of the building and everything else. And that's an executive committee that levels up to that level. So we have those 3 committee structures set up. A lot of the stuff we'll try to keep at the planning committee. There are things that need to build a development committee and alter either or executives whole way that make final approvals.
Interesting. Yeah, you don't want those decision-making processes to slow you down from the big picture.
No, and that's one of the things we continue to monitor and track as part of our KPIs. For example, I talked about we didn't have policies and procedures set up, so we started tracking what's our time to turn around pay apps, what's our time to turn around. So we continue to want to get this into a shorter time frame as we can, and part of it we think that there's an extra layer of approvals, or there's extra steps that we need to try to eliminate that they don't break value at URL. We've been successful in advocating and changing some of those because Dallas, as part of the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, I should say, was tremendously growing, and the competition for contractors is fierce. So, you have a new convention center being built, have Dallas Fort Worth Airport is expanding. You have a lot of data centers showing up. Well, so this project here. So if we can't pay these contractors on time on the app on because for our processes on the project was large, the risk is we'll start work whopping because they got plenty of other opportunities to work.
Do you have within, you talked about the pay app. Do you have targeted days with which to turn around decisions? I know you said you're tracking how long it takes, but do you also have metrics to get decisions by or to turn things around by?
Yeah, for PABs, we're looking at turning those around in 15 days. We're getting about to that. We do have a construction auditor that we hire that's going through these scores first before we do our review. So it does take a little bit of time, but we are continuing to push those down.
That data center thing is interesting. I was talking to an engineer last week. I hadn't thought about this before. With manufacturing coming back to the U.S. potentially, and with the need for these big data centers, that's got to be another. And we don't want people to leave, but he called me and he was, "What do you think about data centers?" It's interesting. That's just another competitor, right, for the talent that we're all trying to get, and that's a potentially significant competitor.
Well, especially for electricians,
Yep.
they're paying top dollar, and those electricians find that attractive.
Yeah, and a lot of times they're a little bit more well-heeled than your typical healthcare organization, the data centers. 2 more quick questions, Bob, before we go, and I thank you for your time. What do you like? What do you like about these big projects? You have great experience with them. What is it about big projects that draws you?
It's really the challenge of setting up organizations for the next 50 years. And as part of that, you really have to challenge yourself of, we're opening this hospital. The construction will be done in 2030. We'll open it up in 2031, after we do all the owner's work and training and everything they need to build it. But we're building it now. We're designing it now for a hospital that's been open in 6 years. So, how do you incorporate innovative features into something that'll be sustainable for, the next 30 years? So a couple of cool things we're doing here that, I can do on a big project, but I may not necessarily have in your regular routine projects that hospitals have is, number one, our CEOs both challenged us or the team to have LEED Gold for the entire campus. So I'm familiar with LEED Gold for a outpatient clinic or a cancer center. Maybe a hospital tower, but for a whole campus has its challenges. So to really go through that and make sure you're tracking where the LEED points are and give yourself some buffer room. But at the end of the day, to be a children's hospital that has the entire campus as LEED Gold is really, a commendable effort, I believe. We're doing stuff like, for example, we're going to have a microgrid with this hospital that'll be able to power the entire facility beyond what the emergency generators do. Wow. I mean, you talked a little bit earlier about, like IoT, AI, and digital twins. So we're really, from back to the facilities part of it, why I like this stuff is we're really starting to get creative on what are some things we can do related to those various things. Now, there are hospitals now that are using IoT and AI for like predictive maintenance, asset management. We'll certainly do that. Energy optimization, indoor air quality, but really setting up even beyond that. So if you have digital twins that go with that, you can have the entire campus virtually enabled that you can test maintenance scenarios or construction scenarios and really reduce risks to patients. We're thinking of using it. Can we use it for spatialization of patient flow? So if you have real-time occupancy sensors and patient tracking systems, can you generate data that AI can analyze to optimize room assignments or reduce wait times and improve patient throughput, So those types of things, we're thinking about smart parking systems. Can you use IoT sensors and AI to guide patients and staff to available parking spaces through an app, So it's those various types of things that a general project like a new tower won't necessarily get you involved in, but you can really put some thought into how to be creative and innovative on these new large projects. So I think that's what draws me.
Did you ever think in your career when you were starting, could you have envisioned talking about these types of cool issues, these types of issues in the career that you started at, and now where we are in 2025. Just listening to you talk about it is kind of, wow, it's a whole new horizon.
No, it is. And really, our profession is very fastly, if that's a word, evolving out. It's no longer the traditional maintenance leader role. It's really, we're becoming strategic partners within, integral to the whole operational efficiency, cost management of your organization, patient safety. So I think, some of the things that I'm thinking about that I would suggest that if there's listeners out there who want to move up to a VP role, that you really need to think about trends that are happening and where our profession is going, if you will. So there's certainly the technology integration he talked about, adapting smart building technologies, financial pressures that healthcare organizations are having. Margins are going to remain tight, and this puts us as healthcare facility professional positional doing more with less. So how do you do creative problem solving? How do you get those strategic vendor partnerships? How do you demonstrate ROI on every investment we're having out there? And we talked earlier about workforce challenges. We're going to have a significant talent gap as experienced leaders retire. So there's an urgent need for succession planning and attracting young professionals to this field. So that's another one, educational partnerships. And we believe people like AMFP can really help come crucial for workforce development. And then there's the stuff that'll never go away, venture control, expertise, regulatory compliance. You still need to be good at that. But I think our profession's really at an inflection point. And it's more challenging than it's ever been, but it's also more impactful than ever. So I think leaders, blending their technical expertise with strategical thinking is going to be more important than ever. So the only way I know how to do that is to be a continuous leader, be able to adapt. To me, those are two non-negotiables. So
Yes.
how would you do it?
Well, I think you took the thunder away from my last question, because I was going to ask you, as I asked you 3 years ago, what's your outlook for the profession? And I think you touched a little bit on it, but any other final thoughts relative to what you see? You gave a good roadmap.
Well, I remember a couple of years ago, you and I differ still a bit. I don't still believe that my position still holds. Right? We had a conversation on, do facility leaders need to have degrees? And my position was, you have to be a continuous leader. That's one way of getting the experience, if you will, to be able to report out to a senior executive team or report out to your board. It shows you obtain some level of achievement that theoretically, at least on paper, you have the ability to do that. So I continue to believe that for healthcare facility leaders, as you want to grow to continue to move up the chain in your organization, healthcare organizations in general are very academic. A lot of their leaders have the academics tied up, and as a profession, I still tend to believe that we should as well, to be able to set at the table level.
Yeah, no, it's funny you bring that up. I'm still where I was a couple of years ago too, relative to take about a case-by-case basis. I think with the shortages we're facing, just to eliminate folks because they don't have the degree, I still think it's short-sighted. But as I was listening to you talk, and I know we got to go on this one, but it's almost leading, do you think, in some ways, to an evolution of a new role, kind of a new definition of facilities management?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's not going to be long where your frontline maintenance staff is not going to be walking around on a cart, but with an iPad.
Yeah.
And literally, that's their first line of diagnosis thing. So, and it's going to continue to be more technologically advanced. We need to continue to adapt.
Yeah. Wow, great conversation, Bob. Anything I didn't touch on? Anything we didn't touch on? It was we covered a lot of ground.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Pete.
My pleasure.
Thank you for allowing me to talk about the Association of Medical Facility Professionals, AMFP. I'm really excited about that organization, and it's had tremendous success. My goal is to help ensure that success continues and put them on a path for a really great organization that was going to be very meaningful to the industry. So thanks for allowing me to talk about that.
Oh, no, my pleasure. I think it's important, and you kind of hit on it relative to we need to publicize the opportunity. And the more organizations that are out there doing that and promoting and educating, it just helps us long term. And I will check out the Boston chapter. We have a Dallas office. Our Dallas folks will check out the Dallas, and I appreciate it. So this is Peter Martin. I thank Dr. Robert Feldbauer, Chief Facilities Officer and Real Estate Development Officer for Children's Dallas. I had to look, Bob. Sorry about that. Dallas, Texas. Bob, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And if you get down to the Dallas office, let me know.
Will do. As always, thank you for watching. Bob, thanks a lot. Have a great day, everybody. We will be back with another episode.
If you want to be a guest on a future episode of the Healthcare Facilities Network, go to healthcarefacilitiesnetwork.com and let us know who you are and what you want to talk about, because together we can solve this critical aging issue.